Hello, and welcome back to my short, well, maybe not exactly short, but reasonably short playthrough and semi-analysis of Braid. So we just finished World 2, and we're heading into World 3, which is the second world in the game. I'm trying to debate whether or not I should go ahead and solve the puzzle here. I don't think I will right now. Okay, so World 3, Time and Mystery. So this world is kind of a natural extrapolation of the mechanics of World 2. But in a way it can seem like this sort of unintuitive leap. I guess if you're not steeped in puzzle mechanics, design, or whatever. Because really, when you look at the mechanics of the world, or of World 2, how they're implemented, programmatically, it really is just kind of an obvious step. Like if you say, okay, the way that we're rewinding everything is that we take every object in the world, and we store its state at a certain position in time, and then to rewind as well, we iterate over all those objects and we set the state to an earlier position. Then it kind of just makes sense to say, well, what would happen if we had an object that we said we don't update the position to that earlier position, like we don't change it when you rewind. So that's kind of that's the programmatic, the technical justification for the mechanics. But really, it boils down to when I rewind, some things don't rewind. And so again, the story here is about, okay, Tim and the princess, and maybe sometimes the princess and Tim want to have some aspects of themselves that can't be manipulated, that can't be changed, that that the other person doesn't know about, which in a way is, in a way that's kind of just representative of relationships in general, that sometimes you just have that there's a certain aspect of like giving up control of yourself when you're with somebody else, and that's a sacrifice. Like you get things for that, but it's also, you also lose some of your freedom. So it kind of works on multiple levels as far as like a metaphor, but also the mechanics. But again, it's like I can look into the story of the game, but I don't know. There's two things there. There's one that, like, I'm not really a big deep thinker about story in games. Like, I think story in games is kind of interesting, but I'm not, like, I've tended to avoid story in my own games as far as I can. Maybe, the bare minimum that's required. I've kind of started to think about it in depth a little more for Duet, but it's hard to say. But I kind of see the story in this, and even the story in so much as it is in Duet, as a reactionary thing to the mechanics. Like, the mechanics are the core of the game, and the story is sort of like my interpretation of it. And the story in this, I feel like, is sort of like Jonathan Blow's interpretation of the mechanics. Like, it's a way to talk about the mechanics. Like if you think of like a textbook or any book, really, if there's an illustration or a picture or something in it, the text in this game sort of serves the same purpose as that. Like, it's not the core of the piece, but it's not important, but it's like an illustration, It's an example. It's like, let's point out some aspect of the mechanics in a different way, in a way that maybe the text can't. And in this case, the text, I mean, by the text I mean the mechanics of the game. So the mechanics are very abstract, and so the text tries to be more literal. I mean, it's metaphorical, but it's more literal than the mechanics. Okay, so we come into here, and this room is called the Pit. And, you know, of course, there's a guy down there, and he's got a key, and there's a door over here, and, well, it's got green sparklies all over it. I don't know what that means, but let's jump down here, and, oh, great, thanks, fraps. And let's kill the guy and pick up the key, and, well, I don't know, what do we do now? So naturally, as a player, it's like, well, at a certain point, you're going to have to rewind because you're stuck down here. And because you're stuck down here, then you're going to realize that you can rewind up and that the key comes with you when you rewind out of the pit. Now, maybe you jumped over here and looked at that and you end up unlocking the door like I just did, or maybe you don't. But either way, you're going to realize there's something unusual about that key. And you're going to pursue onwards to the next room. Again, another green door, sparkly door. What is this? This is weird. I don't understand what's going on. There's a whole bunch of these guys here. And another one of these keys. So again, you know, a lot of times the puzzles in this game are like that, where it's like, okay, well, ultimately this and the previous puzzle require me to do the same thing, which is rewind with the key, the sparkly green key that's immune to rewind, and use it to unlock a door to get a puzzle piece. Well, in the first one, I don't remember if I got a puzzle piece, but either way, it's the same thing that has to be done, but in this case, it specifically requires me to realize that, because there's this door that falls down. And so it's like, wait a second, you know, it's going to be, hopefully, even if I did that, what I just did there, where the door ends up unlocked just by happenstance, hopefully at that point I realized, wait a second, the key, I must have come back with me before I had it, because I didn't have it before then. You know, like I didn't have it before I picked it up when I was looking at that door. Okay, so phase, we're looking at phase now. You know, and phase is just sort of an interesting thing where the aspect of the puzzle that's unique is that the clouds start in a certain phase that is undesirable as far as getting over here. And that phase can be changed by manipulating time, because the clouds move independent of my rewinding. You know, it's a little bit of an advanced technique, I think, to just realize, oh, well, I can just freeze time and wait on a cloud to show up. But still, you know, it's that's kind of one of the core aspects of the puzzle there that's sort of interesting, is like how when something moves independent of the rewind, it creates this changing aspect when you resume the normal functioning of time. Like, even if I say I rewind all the way to the beginning, like the phase is going to be different than it was when I first entered the room, which is kind of a peculiar aspect of just the way the time behaves. So now we have another puzzle that's similar to that one. However, this one is a little more difficult because one of these cannons fires out clouds a lot less frequently, which means that basically I need to realize that I can freeze this. Now, maybe I don't realize that. Maybe I just kind of do this back and forth thing. But either way, I need to realize that there's some way that it doesn't matter what the phase is. Like, that's kind of what it's expressing, versus the other one is it doesn't matter how wide the phase is. I can always wait. I can always just wait a little bit longer, and then the cloud will be where I want it to be, and then I can get where I want to go. And of course, there's this bridge across the top here that's sort of odd. It seems kind of out of place here. There's flour here and all that. Really, it's not that odd because it's reflected in a later puzzle. The ground beneath her feet. I was watching a playthrough of this game a little while back, and the guy who was playing through it was sort of talking about the name of this puzzle, and I don't know exactly why it's named that. Maybe the ground beneath her feet was magic or whatever. Because as he said, like, the little dudes don't really seem to be her. Like, they don't really seem to be female. They kind of don't sound... I mean, maybe that's presumptive, but, they don't... I wouldn't naturally think of them as a her. Anyway, so to solve this puzzle, we've got this magic switch, and that's what this is introducing as well. There's a magic switch and a magic platform, and what does that mean? Well, as usual, it's immune to rewind, so that means that as far as, as when we entered this room, this monster is going to die before we can even get down there. But if we switch the switch, then it moves the platform, which means that the monster won't die. The monster will have a platform to land on, and then be able to go over here and collect a key, which again is a training for us later, because there's later puzzles that require us to know that a monster can collect a key for us. So that sort of, as you would say, kills two birds with one stone. And then we can kind of just do this basic thing, which is like, okay, well, we'll just move the platform and get that. Well, there was like one moving platform in the first world, I guess. So we did kind of have that already. And now we have this, which I remember first time I played this game, this is like a particularly tricky puzzle. Now it seems really basic, but it's tricky because it requires you to think about time in a way that you wouldn't normally. Like, you need to realize that you can't just go over here and somehow flip the switch, which is what you would think, but that by moving this way, by moving backwards of the way you would want to go, and then rewinding, you'll move the opposite direction, more or less. So you move in the direction that you wanted to go because you rewinded. Now, of course, that's a puzzle piece there that doesn't rewind, which means that we can collect the puzzle piece and then continue to rewind to our heart's content while keeping that puzzle piece. But it's really a basic puzzle when you look at it in retrospect, but at first blush, it's pretty complicated because it requires you to think about time in a way that you wouldn't normally, and so it requires this interesting leap of logic, I suppose, because you have to think, okay, well, I'm thinking about time in a different way than I normally would. Like, I think about how when I move through space, and I'm moving on a certain timeline, that that's creating something that I can scrub back through. Like that if I jump off here and if I was to rewind, then I'm going to go back up there, is something that you have to sort of think about in order to solve that puzzle. Even though that's still just a basic aspect of the rewinding, it's brought out into further relief by these elaborations on the mechanics that make certain objects exempt from rewind. Another interesting aspect of this world is the art direction, how it's a forest, which ostensibly would be shady, but it's very sunny and golden, and it's also raining, and it continues to rain more and more as you go through the world. I guess that would be representative of like the magic aspect of it, how it's like there's this superposition of multiple timelines going on. You know, like it's raining, but it's also sunny. It's sunny, but it's also in the forest, which would normally be shady. Okay, so then we have another puzzle here that's it's pretty basic, really, I suppose. Rabbits, killer rabbits in the way, trying to killer rabbits in the way, trying to distract you. But we can't get up here, so obviously we need a guy to bounce off of. And the solution, of course, is pretty basic, as in the typical fashion for this game, where it's just like we need to do the same thing that we did on the previous puzzle, which is where we think about time in a different way, where we think about that moving this way creates a timeline that we can scrub back through. I think there's an interesting aspect here to this, not exactly this puzzle, but this area, because it actually does create one of the soft puzzles in the game, which is getting up on that platform. I imagine the vast majority of people who played the game did not realize that they could get up on that platform. Not sure off the top of my head how you do get up on there, but I think that it's something like this. I believe that we need to create a timeline where I have a bounce and also allow... Oh, crap. Also allow a guy to get down there so that we can have two bounces. Well, I didn't get two bounces for some reason. I don't know what that's with. Let's try this for a little while. You know, it's maybe a waste of time, but I know you can do it because I've done it before, and so it's kind of one of the soft puzzles in the game. And I say soft puzzle, and really what that means is, well, I died again. Really, what soft puzzle means is that it's a puzzle that is not explicitly rewarded by the game. Like, it's a puzzle that doesn't give you a puzzle piece. Oh my gosh. It's a puzzle that doesn't give you a puzzle piece. You know, whereas most of the challenges in the game explicitly rewards you and says, oh, good job, here's a puzzle piece. And this one doesn't. This challenge, the reward essentially is proving to yourself that you can do it. Well, anyway, you can do that. I don't want to sit here for like forever trying to get up there, but I know you can get up there because I've gotten up there. And among other crazy things that you can do, that's one of the crazy things you can do. So, but that's kind of an advanced technique. Anyway, we got the killer rabbits chasing us. I don't know. There's a lot of things in this game that are like that. I think that kind of fits into the like logic versus art aspects of the game, where you have to, in some sense, you have to deviate from logic at times in order to really create art. So, you know, there's a certain amount of just doing things for the sake of doing them. I had this lined up, but we're going to go ahead and... oh, well, it's lined up again. So, you know, this puzzle is kind of a tricky thing because it requires you to realize that if two of these... I don't know what you call them. Fireballs. They're kind of fireballs, but they're sort of like flaming rocks. I don't know what they are. Anyway, cannonball things. If they hit each other, then they explode, and you have to realize that because if they don't hit each other, then the phase here again is too narrow for you to get up there. I think there's a glitch somehow where you can I don't know. There's some way to like do it without actually, like, you just glitch the puzzle and you can jump off the ladder, but the way you're supposed to do it is you're supposed to line those up so that this hit. And again, that's, you know, it's that aspect of how something that is invariant to changes in time, like it's on a separate timeline, has this ability to phase in different ways. But it's different because this one requires you to understand a different aspect of the mechanics of the game otherwise. And a lot of times that's sort of the thing with Braid is that it requires you to understand a different element of the mechanics of the game, and the puzzles are built up of different mechanics in the game, even if sometimes the mechanics otherwise feel like they're fairly simple. It creates an interesting puzzle nonetheless, even when the mechanics that build it up are fairly basic. So this puzzle here is Irreversible. That's the name of it, and that's kind of what it is. And the basics of the puzzle is that if you were to die and rewind at all before that platform makes it across the lower platform here that's green and sparkly, then it will get stuck because the green and sparkly one is immune to your rewind, so it continues to move. So it's set up just in a way that, like, if you rewind at all, then you can't solve the puzzle. And additionally, there's set up to be a dude here and another dude and the little rabbit. So there's a lot of things, and say we run over here, then there's these rabbits up here. So there's all sorts of stuff that's set up to kill us before we get over there, so that maybe we'll have to rewind, even there. Which I've already made it past the point where I would have failed, but there's all sorts of reasons that I might have to rewind and therefore screw up the puzzle. So essentially that's the point here, where we had a few puzzles that were okay. Well, let's talk about phase. Let's talk about the way that when something is invariant to our rewinding allows us to alter the phase of that object in comparison to the rest of the world. Then these puzzles are about how inability to rewind things can hold us back, can give us situations that otherwise we would not be able to get out of. Even here, it's like you're stuck with these bunnies that are specifically programmed to climb on top of the ladder and make it impossible for us to get out. So that I mean, it's in a way it's still reversible due to the rewind, but it's I don't know, it's kind of thematically it fits with the other puzzles here, what you're talking about. I don't know, like there's a lot of aspects of the game that are about regret and about things that you can't take back, and I don't know, it's sort of hard to verbalize. Like, that's sort of the issue with talking about Braid, and I think why John doesn't do it a lot, Jonathan Below, the designer, doesn't do it a lot, is that it's really hard to verbalize what a lot of these puzzles are about. You know, like they're about, to say, oh, it's about a regret, or to say, oh, well, it's about things that like you can't rewind, is like, it's really reductive, because there's more to it than that. Like there's a distinct feeling that all of these puzzles have, even though thematically they're very similar. They're all distinct too. So like we have this puzzle that's saying, okay, well, we've got a key and a door that is, you know, it's magical, it's a magic door, it is immune to rewind, you know, if we're thinking about that. But what that means is that we can get the key back that we used to unlock it, and the door remains unlocked, which means that we can use the key again. And again here, and this one always screws me up. Every time I play this, it screws me up, because I always think, okay, well, we should use the regular key on this door, and then we should use the magic key on the magic door, and then like get the, I don't know why I think that. That's part of what makes it a good puzzle, but for some reason it's really basic, because it's basic, you know, it's the same thing as the other puzzle, but for some reason it's difficult to think about. Anyway, I don't really know why there's the piranha plant dudes here. Like, I guess I've never really thought about that. Like, these could totally not be here, but for whatever reason they're here. I mean, they give you the ability to drop the key, this key down here, and so that's useful, because if I say, oh, well, I want to drop that key, then I can drop it by just rewinding, but I really don't know what they're here for. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to. Some of these things, like there's aspects to the puzzles that are not strictly minimalist, and I think that's where it the game kind of throws me off. And maybe even in my own designs, like that's a failing sometimes, that I just go too much for the straightforward, logical, minimalist approach or whatever. I don't know. That's kind of hard to pin down exactly, like why that's there, or why there's a snapper here. Like it's just, I don't know. It's just like another aspect of the puzzle to make it more. I don't know. It's weird. I can't explain why those are there. Maybe they're not there for any reason, but it makes it less dry. I guess you could say that, because if they weren't there, then it would be pretty dry, because you just have the keys. Anyway, so obviously to solve this, we use the magic key on a non-magic door, because if we use the magic key on the magic door, then we still have lost the key even after we rewind, unlocking the door. But if we use the non-magic key, then when we rewind, the magic door is going to still be unlocked. I don't know if that makes any sense, but, you know, like after I've used the magic key, I can't use it again. But because this is a magic door, I can use the key again, even though I've unlocked the door already, because the door remains unlocked even when I go back in time. Really simple, you know, and it was the same as this, because this required me to use a non-magic key on a magic door. And realized that, but it's difficult because you have to think, okay, what does the non-magic key does? Anyway, here's another one of those where it's like, why there's a cannon here and a rabbit. Gosh, other than to be a pain in the neck, I don't know, but it's like flavor, I guess. I don't know what you call it. It's an aspect of the game, and I like it. But it doesn't fit strictly into like the logical feel of the game. Lair, so it's a boss room, which is interesting in a way because it's like, what is a boss in this kind of game? And of course here we have to kill ourselves to get a key. And, it's nothing new. Like, that's what the pit did. But here it's different in a way because we have to kill ourselves to get the key. Like, you have to die and then you get the key, which is different. It's the same in a way, but it's expressing a different rule. Like, it's expressing that even if you die and you rewind, the key's still attached to you. And of course, there's a door here that's unrewindable, so that we can't use the key for later when we get over here. And I think there's a locked door over there. Yeah, and part of what's cool about the boss is that the boss is not just a typical game boss. I mean, it shakes up the mechanics a little bit. Like, we have these chandeliers that you drop, which is not something that you normally do, but it's still like the guy down there, the monster, is invariant to rewind. Like, even if we stop time, he still continues to move, and that fits into the rest of the mechanics of the world. So it's not a departure from the mechanics, but it's a extension of the mechanics. And of course we can just scrub kind of back and forth to the time to kill the guy, but I sort of failed to do that. But anyway, so you kill him and you get a key and you open the door, and, well, let's go. A tingling. Oh yes, this room. Yeah. And so this again is like, I don't know. It's interesting because the puzzles a lot of times are not really. They're not really necessarily. I mean, they are new concepts, but they're not always exactly new concepts. Like, this is sort of an extension, a high level extension of the earlier concepts that require us to understand that, like, okay, when we move back through here, that's setting up a timeline. So that when we rewind, we'll move in the opposite direction. Like, that's what that requires us to do specifically. It's just more challenging to do and requires more execution knowledge and more of a deep intuitive understanding of what that means. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's like this balance in the game between I don't know. Like, the thing that I've been thinking about is like the weird balance between logic and intuition, or just creativity on the part of the designer in this kind of game. Like there's a certain point where you just kind of you do things where it's like, well, it's, you know, it doesn't strictly make logical sense. Like if I'm thinking about, okay, is that totally a new thing? Have you ever done anything like that before? Yes, you have, but there's a way of thinking about what the player's experience is going through the game, and the way that they think about the puzzles, and the way that you're slowly building kind of an understanding in the player's mind of what the possibility space is. Like there's a certain understanding there that needs to be built up. That if you just jump straight to this, then this is too hard. So you have to do those intermediate steps. And in a way, that's the art of the design, because it's not strictly logical, but you have to kind of understand. Okay, well, I need to do it a tutorial in a sense of these mechanics. I need to explain what the mechanics are, and then give you an interesting challenge. And then we have this here, which is just sort of a goofball mechanic. Which, if we don't do this mechanic here, if we don't do this puzzle here, which is the first time I played, I didn't do this puzzle. This was like one of the last puzzles I did. Then maybe we won't realize that, but you know, the basics of this is that we stand on a certain kind of platform that makes us, as the player, invariant time rewind, so that everything else rewinds and we don't. Which means that we can then go back and get under that door, because we were limited on our time in order to get under that falling door. Like there was no other way that we could get over there. But from this side, we had a shorter path. So you know, even the door there and the puzzle piece is just an abstraction that is designed to illustrate what it means to be able to do this, to be able to rewind. You know, to be able to rewind while you are invariant to the rewind, like while the rewind doesn't affect you. Like, what does that mean? There used to be a cool kind of glitch that you could do here, where you would hit this flag, and then you would rewind back over here to this platform, and then you would fast forward over. And then because you hit the flag, the Yoshi guy would come out. And previously, I mean, you can still do this where there's he's talking to you already, even though you can walk around. But used to, he would walk all the way over, and then he would fall into the pit of spikes. But that's been patched out, so now you can't do that. But it's just a cool little thing that you can do here. But you know, it doesn't really change anything to do that, but it's a neat little trick that you can do. Yeah. So now we can go ahead and get this thing, which spoilers again. If you have not played the game and if you have not gotten all the stars, then I guess this is the time to tune out of this video. Sorry. But yeah, there's a star hidden in this painting, and you may notice there's an odd shape in these corners here. Maybe you've never noticed it, but there's kind of an odd shape here. You know, well, that's a little odd. What is that? I don't know. But if we turn it just so, it happens to look kind of a little bit strange. And if we look above the painting there, well, let's pull these out of the way. If we look above the painting, you may notice that there is what appears to be a small boat, paper boat or something, sticking out of the top of the painting. So if we stick these up here next to that paper boat. Come on now. Don't fail me now, controls. Move it over a little bit. And we set it up just right. Just right. Then we get a star. Is it dumb? I don't know. Maybe. I don't think it's dumb because we have these bridge pieces here, and it's set up in the world that you can jump on them, and the painting is also in the house, so what are you going to do with it? And it's like, well, maybe you just hop up onto a platform. But there's another aspect to the paintings, which is that you could hide things in the paintings, that they have a capacity to have a hidden message in them, or a hidden meaning, or something about them that is hidden. And in this case, it's a star. So, I don't know. It's the one star in the game that I could not find without a hint from someone else. So in a way that's kind of shameful on me, but it's also indicative of that it is a puzzle that is kind of outside of the wheelhouse of the rest of the puzzles in the game. It's one of those I didn't sign up for this kind of puzzles. It's not as bad as some puzzles. There's some star puzzles in the Talus Principle, for instance, that are just ridiculous. But it's outside the wheelhouse. It's much closer to, I think, like what the puzzles in The Witness are going to be like. I think there's that, and there's even the bridge puzzle here is kind of closer to a Witness puzzle. Like, it's a thing that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like, you always will see that looks like a bridge. It looks like one of the bridge tiles. Or even the cloud, the slow-moving cloud. Once you know that the cloud's moving, you can't ever see it as not moving. You can't ever see, oh, well, it was a stationary cloud. When you first see that cloud, you think, what is this cloud? What is it doing here? Why is there a cloud just sitting here? Like, how do I get a guy over there? Like, you try to do that, and you're like, I can't, there's no way to get a guy over there. And so you try that for a while, and you can't get on the cloud, so... But maybe you've done it, you do it for a while, and you finally are just kind of looking at the cloud, and you notice, I think this cloud's moved. And then you can rewind time and realize, hey, this cloud has moved. So, there's that aspect to these puzzles that I think it's valuable and it's interesting to me, but it's also different than the other puzzles, and so maybe in a way it's not exactly congruent. I don't know. It hurts me to criticize this game, but it's that's kind of what I feel like about the puzzle. I don't think it's a bad puzzle. I respect it. I think it's a good puzzle. Oh, one of the other aspects of this puzzle that I think is important to point out is that if you were to, for instance, solve the actual the jigsaw puzzle by putting the thing together, then you can't get that star. Like, if after you solve the painting, after you put the painting together out of the pieces, you can't get the star. Which means that if you've gotten all the other stars in the game, and not that one, and you don't know that one's there, then you can't get it, and you're not going to get it, and you're going to have to start the game over to get it. Which is also kind of a frustrating aspect of that star, but But I think that's the part, if there's any part, that's the part where it fits in thematically to the rest of the game. Which is like to have something in the game that you can only do once. Like there's something in the game overall that's irreversible. Because otherwise the game's entirely about, oh, I can rewind, you know, like, oh, let's rewind all the way back to the beginning of when I got in here. Like there's nothing that you can do that can't be undone is part of the theme of the game. But then the other theme is that even inside of that, there's some things that you can't undo, maybe. And so I think that's the other aspect, you know, like that's the other element of the game, is to say that, and so it fits in thematically in that way, because you can't, like, if you don't get that star and you've finished the painting, then you've lost that opportunity. Like there's some opportunities in life and in Braid that once you pass them up, once you miss them, they're gone. Like you don't get that opportunity again. I mean, unless you start the game over. But anyway, that's really long-winded, and I don't know whether that was even remotely coherent. But that'll do up the part for World 3 here, and in the next video we'll move on to World 4 and get on with that. That seems exciting, doesn't it? Anyway, see you later.